The more you give, the faster she loses interest. You thought love meant sacrifice. You gave your time, your heart, your soul, and still she walked away. No warning, no reason, just silence. Machiavelli revealed the truth. Love isn't connection. It's nature's trick, built to make you obsessed long enough to serve her biology. In this video, you'll learn how to break the illusion and reverse the power. If love ever made you weak, don't blink. This is your reckoning. 1. Love as a biological trick. The moment he said, "I'd do anything for you," her eyes changed. Not softer, not grateful, just colder. That subtle shift in gaze you almost miss, the one that tells you she's no longer chasing. She's already decided she has you, and the game is over. Alex used to believe love was sacred, that if he showed up fully, stayed loyal, and gave without limits, it would be returned. He met Lena at a startup mixer in Austin. They clicked fast. Same sarcasm, same insomnia, same ambition. She called him rare, so he worked to keep her convinced. He made time, adjusted plans, made her feel prioritized above all else, and when she was hurt, confused, lost, he became her refuge. It felt right, it felt like meaning, but love built on fantasy doesn't survive reality. Over time, her replies became shorter, her compliments faded, the warmth in her voice gave way to indifference. One night, when Alex whispered, "I love you," she smiled politely, as if accepting an offering she didn't ask for. That was the moment it all unraveled. He hadn't fallen in love with Lena. He had fallen in love with a projection, a dream, an illusion designed not by her but by evolution. Machiavelli saw it before dating apps, before romance novels, before love became the highest currency of self-worth. He wrote, "Love is not connection. It's a biological trick, a powerful bait engineered by nature, not to bring joy but to trigger reproduction. The attraction you feel? It's not fate, it's strategy. Your brain doesn't see her soul, it scans her body for symmetry, for fertility, for cues of genetic strength, and hers does the same, just calibrated differently. You weren't building a bond, you were being drafted into a contract, unspoken, unseen, but deeply enforced by instinct. Which one of these cost you the most, personally? Drop a one-line story below, no names, just truth. In 30 seconds, you'll see how this illusion doesn't just fool you. It rewires your sense of value, turning sacrifice into duty and desire into dependence. He thought devotion meant depth. She saw devotion as certainty, and certainty is the death of desire. He brought presence. She felt control. And the moment she stopped needing to earn him, her curiosity began to rot, because in the world of attraction, what is fully possessed loses power, and what is predictable becomes invisible. Don't explain yourself tonight. Don't chase clarity. Let silence speak louder than words. Let her feel the space that used to beg for attention, because what she once wanted was mystery, not maintenance. Presence should be earned, not performed. And the next time you feel the pull to overgive, stop. That's not your heart speaking, it's programming. But what comes next reveals a darker truth. If love is nature's bait, then female desire is nature's filter, and she's been screening you long before you said hello. Skip this, and you'll keep losing to men who never even tried. 2. Women's instinctive selection. She didn't ghost you because you changed. She ghosted you because you stayed. Too available, too consistent, too certain. Her instincts didn't feel threatened. And nature doesn't reward predictability. The very loyalty you thought would secure her was the signal that ended the chase. Jacob, 29, worked in tech sales in Austin. Smart, stable, emotionally fluent. He read the books, listened to podcasts, practiced active listening, and when he met Marissa, it felt like alignment. She said she wanted something real, no games, no confusion, just clarity, so he offered that. Immediately. Planned thoughtful dates. Replied fast, shared deeply. He wasn't afraid of emotions, he embraced vulnerability. For 6 weeks it felt like progress. She introduced him to friends, sent selfies at night, said she felt safe. Then she began pulling back. Slowly, like a tide you didn't notice until the shore was empty. One night, over dinner, she stared past him and said, "You're everything I should want, but something's missing." He didn't shout. He didn't beg. He just watched her fork dance around her plate, wondering how transparency became repellent. The truth? Her instincts had already filed him under secured. And for women, once that box is checked, desire begins to atrophy. Biology doesn't wait for logic. It follows a primal rhythm, challenge, reward, withdrawal, and he had unknowingly disrupted it. Machiavelli saw this long before dating apps made it obvious. Women don't select based on fairness or effort, they filter through emotion, calibrated to status, strength, and perceived superiority. Devotion without mystery is invisible, effort without scarcity is ignored. In the theater of courtship, certainty kills suspense, and suspense is what drives instinct. Like a magic trick explained too early, the wonder dies. And so does the pull. If you want to become stronger, wiser, and untouchable, hit subscribe and join this growing movement. Soon you'll see why being safe isn't sexy, and why attraction isn't built on peace, but polarity. He didn't fail because he lacked value, he failed because he presented all of it up front. He gave answers before she had questions, showed his map before she got curious. So her instincts concluded there's nothing left to explore. And when exploration ends, attention follows. She didn't betray him, she just obeyed her evolutionary programming. And nature? It doesn't send a breakup text, it just shifts its gaze to someone less certain. Don't over-explain, don't overgive. Let her earn pieces of you she hasn't seen yet. Tension isn't cruelty, it's currency. When you remove all the unknowns, you remove all the magic. Today, try holding something back, not to manipulate, but to create space for tension to live again. The kind of tension that makes her eyes follow you without understanding why. But what's coming next will sting even deeper, because it exposes the fatal illusion most men still chase, the idea that love is mutual. Skip it, and you'll keep offering your soul in a game where instinct only values advantage. 3. The misconception of mutual love. She told him he was everything she ever wanted, and he believed her, until the silence crept in, until the kisses grew colder, until he realized he was never the prize. He was just the reward she gave herself for winning a chase that ended too soon. Kevin, 36, worked in architecture. Quiet confidence, steady income, loyal to the core. When he met Emma, she said she wanted a mature man. No drama, no games. So he gave her that. Took initiative, planned dates, listened, protected. He didn't make her guess, he made her feel safe. For the first 6 months, she clung to his presence like gravity, until she didn't. He noticed it during dinner one night. She laughed harder at the waiter's joke than she had at anything he'd said in weeks. She barely touched her food. When he walked her to her car, she turned away from his kiss. "You're so good to me," she said. "I just wish I felt more." That sentence shattered something in him. Not just because it hurt, but because he had no idea why it happened. Machiavelli didn't romanticize love. He dissected it. To be loved, one must not be just, but clever. Most men think love is like math. The more you give, the more you receive. But love isn't math, it's instinct. And instinct doesn't crave kindness, it reacts to tension, to asymmetry, to mystery. When a man reveals himself too soon, too fully, he kills the gravity that pulls her in. Like a room with no shadows. There's nothing left to explore. She doesn't leave because he was bad, she leaves because he made himself too understandable. And understanding is the enemy of desire. What comes next isn't noise, It's the move that makes them addicted to your absence. He thought emotional honesty was the path to connection, but to her, it was just data, predictable, mapped, labeled. He thought reliability would secure her affection, but to her subconscious mind, it only confirmed that she could have him, and what can be fully had rarely holds value. The moment he stopped being a question mark, she stopped feeling pulled. The moment he stopped being a challenge, she stopped being in awe. He gave more to get closer. She pulled away to breathe. He simplified the dynamic to prove himself. She grew bored because the mystery dissolved. How many men fall into this loop? How many turn themselves into open books, only to realize she preferred a riddle? Don't explain your love. Don't perform your loyalty. Let her discover your depth, not be handed it on a silver tray. Pull back, not out of malice, but out of design. Because what I'll show you next isn't about being unavailable, it's about becoming undeniable. When you stop giving access too easily, people start earning it again. Which strategy do you wish your younger self had known? Comment it, like you're writing to someone still stuck in the old cycle. The next part reveals a brutal truth, one most men were never told. Her advantage isn't personal, it's evolutionary. Skip it, and you'll keep proving yourself to instincts that were never designed to reward you. 4. Women's evolutionary advantage. She didn't have to earn power, she simply had to exist. At 16, she could walk into a room and make it stop, not because she spoke, but because nature had already handed her the currency of control. And every man, no matter how successful, loyal, or logical, was silently trained to respond to it. Elias was 34, financial advisor. Hardworking, sharp, reliable. He wasn't flashy, but he had built himself from nothing. So when he met Alina, 23, radiant, unpredictable, he thought this was it. She liked his ambition, said she felt safe. For the first few months, he played the provider role with pride, took care of everything, picked her up, paid without question, complimented her even when she ignored him. Until one night, at dinner, mid-conversation, she smiled and looked past him at another man, younger, louder, less polished. That was the first fracture, but he blamed himself. Maybe he wasn't exciting enough. Maybe she needed more attention. So he tried harder, became more generous, more available, but her affection grew colder, until eventually she said it. "You're great, but I don't feel it anymore." That night, Elias sat in silence, staring at his own reflection, and for the first time he saw the pattern, not just in her, but in all the women he had ever chased. They didn't choose him when he gave everything. They chose when he made them feel like they had something to lose. Machiavelli saw this long before Tinder, before therapy talk, before equal love. He said, women are not guided by ideals, they are instruments of instinct. Evolution didn't design them to fight for love, it designed them to filter. Their power isn't built, it's given, and they know how to wield it, sometimes without even knowing why. Like a queen on the chessboard, protected, desired, but always positioned to remove the weaker piece without hesitation. What if the very thing you've been trying to prove is the thing that makes her stop feeling anything at all? He thought love was a reward. She treated it like a resource. And when he stopped being a challenge, he stopped being chosen. So he wonders, was it ever about connection, or just evolution playing tricks with his hope? Stop thinking your sacrifice will buy affection. Start watching what happens when you stop reaching first. Let her feel the drop. Let her recalibrate. And if she doesn't, maybe she was never really there. Only her advantage was. Someone in your circle might be struggling with this. Send this video to them. Your share might be the turning point for them. The next part reveals what happens when you finally stop playing her game and start designing your own. Miss it, and you'll keep building thrones for women who were never meant to stay on them. 5. The weaponization of female power. She doesn't need to love you to control you. All she needs is your hope. The hope that maybe this time she means what she says. Maybe this time she'll choose you. And every time she withholds clarity, she tightens the leash, because your confusion is her control. Ethan was 32, a quiet, consistent man working in IT. For nearly a year, he devoted himself to a woman named Claire. He drove her to appointments, cooked for her after long days, laughed at jokes that weren't funny, listened when no one else would. But whenever he asked for clarity, she vanished, then returned with tears and stories, just enough to reset the cycle. One night, after spending hours helping her move, she looked at him and said, "I'm so glad you're in my life. You're like my emotional home." His chest swelled. But days later, she posted a photo with another man, holding hands. When he asked, her reply was surgical. "You're important to me, but not in that way." He didn't cry. He just stared at the screen, like a worker realizing the company he built loyalty toward never intended to promote him. Machiavelli saw it coming. "Women are not cruel," he wrote. "They are practical. In a world where beauty depreciates fast, power must be extracted while the value is highest. Today, that power is attention, and attention is a currency. She doesn't need to love one man when hundreds compete to make her feel divine. Likes replace loyalty, flirting becomes income, and men, they chase shadows, hoping consistency will beat strategy. But consistency in her world is free labor. She doesn't build intimacy, she builds dependency. She tests how much you'll give for nothing, and the moment you stop giving, you're not mourned, you're replaced. What if her confusion wasn't confusion at all, but the most effective strategy to keep you orbiting? He thought love was loyalty. She used loyalty as leverage. He believed that patience would earn clarity. She knew that withholding clarity would keep him patient, and when he finally disappeared, she didn't break down. She posted a quote about growth. "Mute her story. Don't ask for closure. Watch what happens when she realizes the mirror is no longer reflecting her. You were never the fool, until you kept explaining your worth." Which one exposed a habit you didn't know you had? Comment the shift you're about to make. But what comes next isn't silence. It's the strategic withdrawal that forces her to confront her own emptiness and why it terrifies her more than losing you. The next part reveals how women instinctively weaponize emotion, not just to attract, but to control without ever appearing dominant. Miss it, and you'll keep apologizing for being too available, while she rewards the man who never had to ask. 6. Emotional influence as a female weapon. She didn't raise her voice, she didn't make a scene, but hours later, you found yourself restless, scrolling through old texts, rehearsing things you said, wondering what went wrong. That's not confusion, that's emotional leverage. Lucas, 33, a senior project manager from Berlin, had always considered himself emotionally aware. He prided himself on staying calm, explaining clearly, and never dominating conversations. His girlfriend Iris admired his empathy at first, but as months passed, something shifted. She never criticized him directly. She didn't even argue. Just a subtle look when he brought up his promotion, a delay in replies when he canceled dinner to work late, a quiet, "It's fine," after he poured his heart out. Each time, Lucas adjusted, less celebration, fewer late nights, more explanations, until one night, after he expressed frustration over the imbalance in their efforts, she simply replied, "I'm not sure you're emotionally available." That night, he didn't sleep, not because she yelled, but because she didn't need to. She had already planted the doubt. Machiavelli warned, men wage battles with words and logic, but women, they craft emotional terrain. Their influence isn't direct, it's environmental. She doesn't challenge you head-on, she shifts the air you breathe. One expression, one silence, and suddenly, you're negotiating with your own mind. Men try to persuade. Women make you question what's real. Do you disagree with any of these? Challenge it below. With logic, we read everything. Soon you'll see why emotional ambiguity isn't weakness. It's the most effective psychological weapon. He thought empathy would build intimacy. She interpreted it as exposure. and exposure. That's where control begins. He was having conversations, she was shaping expectations. While he tried to be transparent, she remained unreadable, and in that imbalance the power flipped. He kept giving clarity, hoping for safety. But safety isn't seductive, it's predictable. And predictable men aren't just ignored, they're reprogrammed. Tonight, say nothing. Stop explaining. Observe what happens when mystery enters the room. Power doesn't come from visibility, it comes from unpredictability. And what comes next isn't just silence, it's strategic invisibility. The kind that turns confusion into obsession. The final part reveals the one truth that ties everything together, and how silence, mystery, and detachment become your most dangerous form of self-respect. This is where it all comes together, where philosophy meets survival, and where illusions finally shatter. Machiavelli didn't teach bitterness, he taught clarity. He showed us that the man who understands female nature doesn't hate it, he adapts without losing himself. He doesn't chase, explain, or beg. He builds a life so magnetic she either aligns or watches from a distance. Because power isn't about dominating others. It's about no longer being dominated by your own delusions. So let this video be the line in the sand. From here on out, choose presence over performance, strategy over supplication, depth over desire. And if this message opens something inside you, subscribe. This channel is for those ready to stop playing by the old rules and start writing their own.